Hello, let me tell you something awesome if you want to start a podcast and you don't have the funds to do so. And if you haven't heard of Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. And it has everything you need in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Easy to use. If I can use it, anybody can use it. Also, when hosting on Anchor, you get to distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more, and which is something you don't have to do nothing. Anchor does everything for you. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place, and best of all, Anchor is totally free. Check it out right now. Start a podcast. I cannot wait to hear you speak.
Hello, welcome to Truck Stop Murder True Crime Podcast. I am your host, Gary Howard. This is the execution episode where I cover executions that happened after 1976 after U.S. reinstated the death penalty after it was found that it was cruel and unusual punishment in 73 where they had to find a different method. And they did. So no truck stop on this one, which I do promise I'll get back to some of my regular episodes with the truck stops in the future. Hopefully by next Wednesday, I will have it, or this coming Wednesday. I'm recording this on Tuesday. So this will come out next Monday, and I'll have an episode out this Wednesday. Like I told you, it'll be from Wisconsin. But this is on that. Sorry it's been so long since I put out an episode for my few listeners that I do, which I do appreciate. And I do appreciate everybody in Honduras who's keeping me on the iTunes True Crime podcast list. Thank you so much. And without further ado, I will try to, like I said, I'll try to be more consistent. But man, with the holidays that just passed, and New Year's and Christmas and everything, and back to truck driving, working 14 hours, I really was hoping to put more episodes out. But here I am, blabbing. Let's talk about the case. Let's talk about John Eldon Smith. He was executed in December 15, 1983. So there's no, since I put an episode, execution. So he was convicted of the murders of Ronald and Juanita Atkins. He was executed by the state of Georgia, first Georgia, on this. I know I did an episode on Georgia on execution, but they still have not executed him yet. I tried to figure out what's going on, but they have not been no updates on him. But yeah, he was executed via electric chair, which I forgot to mention on the last episode when they touched his body. That was the last execution they did via electric chair in Louisiana because they saw that they pretty much cooked them. They didn't. In theory, they thought they passed out when the first charge hit to the brain. When in actuality, they were actually cooking them. But because the muscles tighten up when you are electrocuted, everybody been electrocuted or anything like that, your muscles tighten up, so they couldn't scream or anything because their mouth is tight shut, and because they have a hood, you can't really see their face. So they actually cooked them. I know some people be like, well, fuck, that's what they deserve, but don't that make us monsters like them? I mean, we gotta be better, and that's why it's in the Constitution, cruel and unusual punishment, which I personally believe they should just go ahead and leave them in jail forever. That's be way more punishment. I know a lot of people, why should they live? But what kind of life are you having in prison? But yeah, he became the first person executed in Georgia since 1976 when the death penalty was reinstated. So let's talk about this individual. Let's talk about background. And a lot of this information is from Wikipedia. I'm trying to get caught up. So Wikipedia is where it's at. And I did try to find videos and podcasts about this person, and I just can't really find nothing. There's a Murderpedia, but a lot of it's a lot of excess information. You can find him on Murderpedia too, which I did read a lot about. But for this, I'm going to be going over Wikipedia. But yeah, in 1956, shortly after graduating from high school, we'll talk about the one first person, Rebecca Turpin, married Joseph Ronald Atkins, a technician and an engineer who worked for the Southern National Gas Company. They had three daughters together by 1960. In 1973, Atkins accused his wife of trying to murder him, leading to their divorce by the next year. And I thought it was kind of crazy. What made me, I'd like to know more information about that. What made him think that his wife was trying to kill him? But later on, you'll see maybe she was. Atkins were married to Juanita Knight, an elementary teacher, just not too long the next year, not too far and long after that. So maybe he was just trying to get rid of her. I don't know. So, subsequent to the divorce, Rebecca relocated to North Miami Beach, Florida with her daughters, where she met John Eldon Smith, the man we're talking about today, an insurance salesman who was also a native of Miami. The two of them soon married, some quickly, really fast afterwards. She moved there. I'm probably saying that wrong. Word. My wife just actually made fun of me not too long ago. I was trying to say a word, and she just went blah, 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 making fun of me. I'm trying to get her on the show. I will get her on the show one day. I even gave her a free pass to make fun of me as much as she want, but she just won't. Desra, if you're listening, I know you're listening. There you go. You can make fun of me as much as you want, and I will not say nothing. I will embrace it. But yeah, Smith adopted. This is what's crazy. Smith adopted the moniker of Anthony Isabella Machete, often shortened to Tony Machete, because his wife thought the name had a mafia ring to it. Rebecca, of course, being back there, there's probably a bunch of cocaine running through Miami, and everybody mob, and that was super cool. So Rebecca changed her name to Rebecca Akins Smith Machete Smith, and his wife Rebecca had aspirations of living a life of luxury in North Miami Beach, with Smith adapting the identity as a hitman to fund his lifestyle. Now, there's no records of him that I could find of him actually killing anybody, because this guy does seem like a moron. So I really doubt he probably just said he was a hitman, because what you're about to hear, he is not very good at this. So to keep this lifestyle up, they need money. So when Rebecca realized that her daughters were the beneficiaries of Ronald Gene Atkins' life insurance policy, she decided to murder him in order to cash it out. Rebecca stood to gain $53,000 on Atkins' murder. Now keep in mind this was back in '74. So I looked up what would that be worth today, and it actually is a nice chunk of change. So $53,000 in 1974 is equivalent to purchasing power of, listen, it's 320,000. Wait, $320,054. So and 42 cents if you want to edit that, add that to it. But here's what tripped me out about that was I actually put in the wrong number at first. I put 75, and actually in 75 it actually went down. I can't look it up because I am not hooked up to Wi-Fi right now. Now keep in mind all these episodes are recorded in my truck. So if there's no Wi-Fi, I guess I could use my hotspot, but I didn't think about it until now. But it dropped down by 70,000 from 74 to 75. But yeah, so she was going to get quite a bit of money for his murder. So on the evening of August 31st, 1974, Smith, alongside his wife Rebecca and one of Rebecca's former lovers, another former insurance salesman, also a hitman. Oh my God, go figure. And a Fort Myers native named John Murray, Maree, lured 38-year-old Joseph Round Atkins to a suburban subdivision under construction in Bibb County, Georgia, and Macon, under the ruse to installing television antenna. Remember when that was a thing? Juanita, who was 29 and had only been married to Atkins for about 20 days, accompanied him. Upon the victims' arrival, Smith and Murray ambushed them. During the murders, Rebecca remained in Miami and did not accompany Smith and Marie. It's Maree. I'm going to say Marie. To Macon. The bodies was discovered only hours later by a private pilot who happened to be flying by the area over the area. After committing the murders, Smith and Marie returned to North Miami Beach. Marie was promised $1,000 for his involvement in the murder. Shortly afterwards, police suspected that Rebecca was involved in the murders. Rebecca, Smith, and Marie were all arrested in 1974. All three was extradited back to Georgia. During John Smith's trial, John Murray took the witness stand for the prosecution and testified that he witnessed Smith commit the murders after driving Smith from Miami to Macon. He also testified the original plan was to beat Ronald Atkins and then inject him with poison, but the plan was foiled was not didn't happen by Juanita because she came with her husband, and by the fact that the beating that Marie and Smith had planned failed to render the victims unconscious, leading to the killings reported to shooting Ronald and Juanita Aikens with buckshot from a 12-gauge shotgun. Marie claimed that Rebecca Machete convinced him and Smith to participate in the murders by telling them that she wanted vengeance against Ronald Aikens for issues during her marriage to Aikens. And so maybe she did try to kill him in the past. That's what it sounds like to me. If she said there was issues in the past, so we must kill him. So, and also Marie also claimed that both Smith and Rebecca threatened him and his family should he refuse to assist them in the murders. So Smith also took the stand during his trial, testifying in his own defense and denying his knowledge of involvement in the murders. His alibi was that he spent the day of the murders on a beach near his house in Miami, so he was not even there. And he claimed that he had loaned Marie his driver's license, which I don't know why there's pictures on it, and credit cards under the supposed guise of Marie going on a business trip with them, which don't make no sense at all. And I don't know if you're confused by the way I read it. That's just how it's. That's what he said. John Eldon Smith was convicted of all male by an all male jury on 2 counts of first degree murder after a 3-day trial. During his guilt phase of the trial, the jury only deliberated for 25 minutes before determining that Smith was guilty of the murders of Ronald and Juanita Aikens. Not Aikens. I worked for a guy named Brian Aikens, so I think that's I think I'm saying that right. Akins. During the sentencing phase, Smith's trial, his jury deliberated for only 90 minutes before agreeing to the sentence of "You, sir, be gone with you." And that might sound similar to another podcast, and I did have my mistake. I just want to say "Be gone with you" to death. Rebecca went on trial on February 10th, 1975, and received a death sentence for her jury as well. So eventually we'll get to Rebecca. I might just go over it on my next one episode right here, but whenever she got executed. So Marie agreed to testify against Smith and Rebecca in exchange for a guilty plea to 2 counts of first degree murder, after which she received 2 concurrent, which together, life sentences that came with the possibility of parole. Marie entered his guilt plea on April 4th, 1975. So let's talk about death row and appeals by Smith. Smith's death sentence was automatically appealed, as they always do. At the time of Smith's death, it was customary for an automatic appeal to be filed in every new death row inmate's case, which I think is still today, regardless if a lot of people don't want it, they just want to go ahead and get executed right away. But I think it's like an automatic. They have to go through the automatics, the appeals. There be delaying the imposition of death sentence until the appeals process is finished, or inmates waive the remaining appeals. So I guess it starts, and then inmates could repeal. I think it came with a couple other cases that I've done. But yeah, in 1976, the Georgia Supreme Court upheld Smith's death sentence. While Smith was on death row, Rebecca's attorney appealed her death sentence on the grounds that the women were undepressed, whatever. In the jury pool, there was no women in the jury pool. I know somebody made fun of me on YouTube saying, if you don't know how to say the words, just don't say them. Under depressed. I have a long day today. In her jury pool. So there's no women in the jury pool. So while Smith's jury was picked from the same pool as Rebecca's jury, he did not appeal on the grounds, as his attorneys were unaware of the recent Supreme Court decision that found that the underrepresentation of women in a jury pool was a violation of the Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution. So Rebecca won a retrial on the grounds, and which took place after a change of venue, and was eventually resentenced to life imprisonment. See, there you go. There was no death for her. I thought you thought that she was going to be executed, but she didn't. Trick you. But yeah, she got life imprisonment. Shortly afterwards, Smith's death sentence was upheld, and same federal court that overturned Rebecca's sentence refused to grant Smith a new trial. So Smith was the first person on Georgia death row to have an execution date scheduled following the death penalty moratorium that was established with the U.S. Supreme Court in 1972, Furman versus Georgia ruling, and lifted by 1976 Gregg versus Georgia ruling, which would got me started on this whole thing on the execution. Because of the first it started because I got a book from the Huntsville, last meal, the guy who made all the last meals for all the inmates. I thought that's when I started the Monday murder meal. And then someone says, well, I would like to have more information on these individuals. So I thought, well, let's just do 76 when they started and let's talk about all of them. So after Smith won a stay of execution, Atlanta's then mayor, Maynard Jackson, protested execution at the time. And Jackson was a member of a group called the Georgia Committee Against the Death Penalty, and he and other members of the group called then Georgia Governor George Binsby to halt his execution during his term of office. When referencing the return of the death penalty nationwide, Jackson stated, "This background step cannot be tolerated. The death penalty historically has been appealed sensitively with primarily the oppressed and the disadvantaged poor people, black and white, uneducated people bearing the brunt of the brutality, barbaric punishment." So basically, if you're black, poor, or anything like that, you're going to get the death penalty. What he pretty much said. Jackson was joined by then State Representative David Scott, the executive director of the Georgia branch of American Civil Liberties upon Union, Gene Guerrero, and the executive director of the Atlanta. A bunch of people, blah blah. That was with him on that. So let's talk about the execution and aftermath. The day prior to Smith's execution, the Georgia Pardon and Parole Boards denied his request for clemency. He was also scheduled to be executed alongside Alpha Otis O'Donnell Stephens. What a long name. Otis O'Daniel Stephens, another Georgia death inmate, but the Supreme Court granted Stephens a last-minute stay of execution by a 5-4 vote, which we might be talking about him sooner. I gotta look at my notes. While Smith, who had exhausted all his court appeals by then, had his request denied by a 7-2 vote. Parole Board Chairman Mobley Howell said of Smith's case, "There can be no doubt John Eldon Smith was a willing and active participant in the crime of murder." So maybe I should do with that. There's no doubt John Eldon Smith was a willing and active participant in the murder. That sounded horrible. Sorry for that. But yeah, Smith's execution was scheduled to take place on December 15th, 1983 at 8 a.m., which occurred according to a former prison guard who was staffed to work at Smith's execution, attracted many anti-death penalty protests in an Atlanta-based television station. Smith was executed by electric chair at the Georgia Diagnostics and Classification State Prison in Jackson, Georgia, thereby becoming the first person to be executed in Georgia since the execution by Bernard Dye in October 16th, 1964, which occurred prior to the death penalty. So he just missed it. So which occurred prior to the moratorium established by, like I said, the Furman in Georgia, the prison. So that's when afterwards, years after his execution, the final words. Now I couldn't find no final meal on him, but I did find his final words were purported to have been, "Well, the Lord is going to get another one." Yeah, I guess if you're a Christian, you could believe that he's going to hell, or if he was saved Christian, it doesn't matter what you did, you're still going to heaven. Now you not might reap the rewards of someone who did not do this, but yeah, in reality, sources state that Smith had no official words and did not request any specific witness to attend his execution, so he was there by himself. Although reporters noted that he told the warden shortly before his execution, "My final statement will be delivered by Father Wise," referring to the prison chaplain, Reverend Richard Wise. And he also told guards as they were strapping him into the electric chair, "Hey, there ain't no point in pulling us so tight." Following Smith's execution, anti-death penalty activist Harry, I'm not even going to try to say his last name, Schwarzschild, Schwarzschild, noted that John Smith's execution assured a new era of executions in the United States where the death penalty would be appeared more frequently. And as I told you at the beginning of the podcast, I think I did, told you at the beginning of the podcast, I recorded so many times, stop, record, that there was only 5 executions this year in 83. But tell you what, I got it right there. Why I just look, 83, he was the last person executed in 83, which was only 5. But 84, it jumped up to 21. So I have plenty of material to record in the future if you like that. If not, just tell me on social media to shut the fuck up. We don't want to hear no more everybody, and I'll probably just ignore you. But let's talk about John Murray was paroled from prison after serving 13 years of his sentence in 2010 at the age of 71. Rebecca Machete was paroled 36 years into her sentence and changed her surname to Lorasso, Lourusso, to match that of a new common law husband at the time. In September of 2020, at the age of 81, she died of complications related to COVID-19. And so there you go. There's the murder of the Atkins. If you want to pay your respect to Juanita Barrett Knight Atkins, you'll find them both in Calhoun, Georgia, in Gordon County. Now, she was born September 15th, 1945, in Calhoun County, Georgia. And of course, she was murdered August 31st, 1974, at the age of 28. I said 29, but she was about to return 21 in Bibb County, Georgia. So she's in section 1. And her ID, like a memorial ID, I'm not really for sure what these suggest. Probably some if you go to the cemetery itself, you can give them the ID number. But if you want to go there and visit her, her memorial ID is 912-99398. And all this can be found on Find a Grave. And her husband is buried there as well. So that's where she's at. And if you want, and her husband, and if you want to do whatever you want to do to John Eldon Smith, well, there is no gravesite for him. He was born September 17th, 1930, and was executed at the age of 53 in Georgia, December 15th, 1983. So there you go. I'm trying to find information about here because, like I said, my computer, sometimes I need to do this full time. I like to do this full time because every time I record, I have to reset up my equipment and everything, and depend on my Wi-Fi, my phone, the hotspot. But yeah, here we go. Joseph Ronald Atkins. He was born April 2nd, 1936, in Athens, Georgia. So both of them were born in Georgia, which is, and of course, he passed away the same August 31st, 1974. He's also buried there. His ID is 912-99433. So, but yeah, John, there's on Find a Grave. He's on Find a Grave, but this just says the burial details unknown. His if you want to know his memorial ID, just check it out. If you want to look it up, send hit mail, whatever you want to do. 116643477. Where there you go. There is the execution of John Eldon Smith. Sorry, it might have been hard to read or listen to. Of course, you're not reading it. But I'm going to try to get back into it and get a little rusty with my reading and setting up my podcast equipment, blah, blah, blah. And how is my new equipment? I actually got a new microphone. I asked my wife about it. She says it sounds fine. I would like to hear your opinion on it. Go to, if you want to communicate and tell me how bad my babbling is or whatever, negative, positive, or whatever, go to. But if you say something negative, please help me out by saying how I could do better, not just saying you fucking suck and be done with it. So you fucking suck because of this, and you should do this. And I'm always up for criticism as long as there's some way to better it. But join my you can tell me on my Facebook group. My private Facebook group is Truck Stop Murder and True Crime, or you could go to my Instagram at Truck Stop Murder and True Crime, or Twitter at Truck Murder, or just email me at truckstopmurder@gmail.com, which I finally realized why I wasn't getting no messages or emails or anything like that, because somehow I'm not for sure how Google works, but I guess I was downloading pictures and they said I didn't have enough room to receive. So that's the reason why I tried to email myself and would not send. So, but I fixed that. I guess I have to pay for emails through Google or figure out a way to get rid of all my pictures. If you might, knows anything about that, help me out, because I won't be paying dollars something like that a month for emails, which everybody else is getting for free. And with that being said, there goes another episode. John Eldon Smith. Hopefully, I'll put out my next Truck Stop Murder episode out of Wisconsin, which been on the paper for about almost a month now, I guess. So hopefully I'll get that out. And I always end my episode by saying you can't fix stupid, but you can sure numb it with a 2x4. I'm out of here. And Happy New Year.